A lot of companies these days are working with hardware and software technologies, and now they're working together. So the hardware groups and the software groups have to work together, and they're able to produce hardware at faster rates, and of course software is always produced very quickly. And the real trick here, when it comes to the practical work versus the theoretical work, is to get these streams to work together. You can iterate on software very quickly. You can change software when it's in the field. You can't do that with hardware, and you certainly can't do it in the same way, or it's much harder to do anyway. So the way that successful companies tend to work is that they acknowledge this difference, and so the process is identical process in terms of how to think about the innovation, identical process in terms of understanding how you do the research, how you understand who the stakeholders are, what you could be limited by. The limitations are now a little bit different, because with hardware, you're limited by a number of factors, including how big can something be? How big can a box be? Because if you make a box a little bit too big, you can now ship fewer of them in a shipping container. So a lot of those things start becoming specific issues. Software doesn't have that. But again, software has different kinds of boundaries or hazards that can go wrong with software. So the process is identical, but there's small changes in the specific kinds of things you have to look for when you're developing and designing for different hardware and software solutions that go together, particularly timeframes. And the way that those teams have to work are inherently different. So they have to be able to communicate really effectively. And that comes down to having good leadership skills. So great innovation isn't just about having a good design process, but you need that. And it isn't just about acknowledging you need to be able to look at the world differently. You need to do that too. But you need really good process of leadership to understand how you give energy to the team, how you can make sure that you can identify and solve a paradox, how you can make sure that if you have a changing situation that gets worse, how do you react to that? It's really important, so you can keep the team moving forward and use it as an opportunity to get better. Most companies that have hardware and software components, they're doing both in-house, don't do one of them well. There are a few companies, of course, that we all know that do a great job, the big ones. But the smaller you get, the harder it is to do. Either you're really good at hardware and you've been excellent at that for a long time, you may not be very good at software. And the kinds of people that have hired those skill sets don't have the experience that they, as the people who've been doing it for their whole lifetime. A lot of companies are in a tough situation right now. So getting people that have good hardware and software skills together, both working together so they can communicate really effectively, is super critical to the next set of products that are going to come out that leverage both. Ever since the launch of these speech assistants and voice assistants that are kind of becoming ubiquitous now, the biggest single problem that we saw with that is the fact that these companies didn't set any boundaries about what the assistant was definitely going to do well and what it couldn't do well. Some assistants did that at the beginning. They're going to focus on something like music or timers. That's very, very, very good. And as they had new skills, new features, then they let people know. You can do something now that's new. You can shop for something, for example. When people don't know what the system can do, and they try something once, if it fails, they'll never try it again. And now when a company starts putting in that new feature, if they don't let you know, you won't try it again. And all that work that's been in development of that new feature is wasted. So it's very hard because we have no visual way of seeing the menu of options. And each assistant is doing a lot of work to try to get a sense about the things you can say to the assistant, but it's hard to form a mental model of that system. So I think what we're going to see coming in the future is more specialized assistants, where it knows a lot about one area, the way an expert does. We know a lot from work in social psychology, the fact that an expert has a strong impact on the way users work with a piece of technology. So an expert speech assistant can really know a domain very deeply, and you'll be able to anticipate what it might know. So maybe an expert assistant for helping you find music, a real expert, would do a great job navigating complex things like jazz or classical, where the person who wrote the piece, Mozart, isn't the same thing as Duran Duran, right? So, because Duran Duran's performing the piece and someone else is performing Mozart. Those are more equivalent, but we don't think about that in our mental models. So really good systems will be able to be incredibly flexible as long as they're more specialized.